Sarah Show.
Good morning, everybody. Well, as we speak, there are 41,000 people down in Greenwich. They're all going to run in the London Marathon. It's an extraordinary number of people, and with midday temperatures due to be about 23 degrees centigrade, low 70s Fahrenheit, a lot of people are going to have a very, very tough few hours coming back. I can't tell you how thrilled I am not to be one of them at that starting line, but I know a lot of people are there, and they're doing it for charity, they're doing it for good causes, and, you know, if you're not an athlete, it takes a bit of guts, doesn't it, to train and run in that marathon, and we will, over the course of the next couple of hours, bring you news from the event, let you know what is going on. Last night, I was very privileged, I think, to be invited to the Royal Albert Hall. It was the Queen's 92nd birthday yesterday, and, of course, her official birthday comes in June, and that's when we have Trooping the Colour, etc. There'd never, ever been before an official event on the Queen's actual birthday. But yeah, it was yesterday, her actual 92nd birthday. And of course, it comes at the end of the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, which took place in London this week. Big event, huge debates about the Commonwealth, what's its future, how does Brexit fit in, what does the Windrush scandal mean in terms of our relationships with all of these countries. And the reason the birthday party happened is because the Commonwealth Heads of State were in town. Royal Albert Hall, if you haven't been, it is the most extraordinary venue. Gosh, the Victorians were good at building things and doing things. I loved it. Tom Jones, other acts for the youngsters, Sting. It was really good fun. But the best bit was, she was sitting there in the royal box. Charles was with her. The two princes were there. Harry, in fact, appeared on stage and gave a speech about his grandmother. And I thought she'd gone. She wasn't sitting there. And we all thought, well, maybe she's gone before the big rush, or I don't know. And then, at the end, she appeared on stage. And I tell you what, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. And it is extraordinary, the love that this woman seems to generate. You know, and not just in Britain, around the wider world. She is a remarkable woman. These decades of service that she's given are quite extraordinary. She loves the Commonwealth. She has always loved the Commonwealth, and she, with her husband, the Duke, I mean, they have spent, you know, months and months and months of their lives just travelling around Commonwealth countries. But I wonder, what is the Commonwealth? Is it relevant? Do you know what it really means? It's a remarkable thing because if you think about all the other European countries who built up their empires in the 19th and 20th centuries, nearly every single one of them have dreadful relationships with their former colonies. And yet here we are, having had the biggest empire that the world's ever seen, that now has this amazing relationship with all of them through this club that is called the Commonwealth. There are 53 countries in the Commonwealth. The population of those countries is 2.4 billion people. So getting on for 1 in 3 of the world's population live in Commonwealth countries. The Queen is the head of the Commonwealth, and it was decided this week that Prince Charles in turn will succeed her. That doesn't mean it'll be a member of the British royal family forever that will head the Commonwealth. And I guess as the years go on, it may well adapt, it may well change. Many of the countries in the Commonwealth are tiny little islands in the Atlantic, the Pacific, but of course the big one is India with over 1 billion people. We as a country, back in the early 1970s, made a big strategic decision. We decided that the Commonwealth was old hat, that the Commonwealth, frankly, was backward, and if we looked across the Channel to France and Germany, that looked to be shiny, bright, new and successful, and we took a big decision, and that decision was to join the European community, and we saw Europe as our future. 45 years on, we actually see that some of the fastest growing economies in the world are in the Commonwealth. And the kind of bond of friendship that exists within it is so great, there are now countries applying to join the Commonwealth who were never even part of the British Empire. And with Brexit, there are some amazing opportunities. I had a meeting yesterday with New Zealand's Foreign Minister. He's really excited about what Brexit can mean for the relationship between us and New Zealand and for trade. Clearly, Clearly, Brexit was a big thing that was discussed this week. If we're freed to make our own trade deals, there are some real opportunities out there. But I wonder, we had the scandal this week, the Windrush scandal, and whether it's Labour or the Tories' fault, frankly, isn't really the point. Clearly, something gone horribly wrong in the Home Office. But would a closer Commonwealth mean even more immigration coming into this country? Because India have said already, if there's a trade deal between us and India, they want freer access for Indian people to come to Britain. So moving this forwards isn't going to be easy. There are going to be arguments and debates. I suspect immigration will be at the heart of it. But for my money, I think the Commonwealth is the most incredibly underrated asset that exists out there in the world. It's a fantastic opportunity for us. And how amazing that actually in America now, the Royal Commonwealth Society has set up an office. So it's becoming a bigger, broader thing. It's becoming an organisation for the English-speaking peoples of the world. And I want to know from you, what does the Commonwealth mean to you? And if you're a younger person, tell me, what have you been taught at school about it, if anything? Call me on 0345 6060 973. And if you come from a Commonwealth country, and you're now living in the United Kingdom, what do you think the future relationship between our countries is going to be? But maybe you think, no. This is all completely outdated. The fact that Charles is going to succeed her, it's just the Brits trying to have a softer form of empire, and actually it's all old hat. If that's how you feel, then tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC, and watch us on Facebook and comment there too. I'm going to ask Mark in Newark. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Nigel.
So what do you think about the Commonwealth?
Well, I think that based on your politics of what you believe in about Europe, which I'm not saying you're completely wrong, based on a lot of things that you feel, you personally should be against everything that the Commonwealth, and particularly the monarchy, appeals at me. The idea that she got Charles in, and she got all these heads of state of all these other countries in the Commonwealth together, and then she basically sort of pushed the son onto them, is exactly the sort of unelected quango that you personally would despise.
Well, okay, unelected. I wouldn't say the monarchy is an unelected quango.
Of course she's unelected. How is she elected?
She is.
Queen? Nobody.
It's a slightly separate debate, Mark, and I did make the point that I'm sure that after Charles it will be somebody else. The point about the Queen, and the reason it works, is because she is an apolitical figure.
But she's not an apolitical figure. If she was an apolitical figure, she wouldn't be pushing her son onto them, would they? So don't believe this idea that she's an apolitical figure. It's just not true.
I see her as apolitical, and if it wasn't her...
Nigel, why do people like you understand the idea of meritocracy, and you're against all these things, but you seem to sort of like, for some reason, you have a blind spot with the monarchy. Why do you feel that way?
Well, because I'd rather have the Queen than President Blair. Because if we didn't have a monarch, we would get a politician
far better than us having a monarchy.
Right, I'll tell you what, Mark, let's take the monarchy out of it for the moment.
Okay, let's take the monarchy
out of it for the moment. It could well have been, the other countries could have said to the Queen, no, we don't want Charlie Boy, we want somebody from India. They are the biggest country in the Commonwealth. Taking the monarchy and the head of the Commonwealth out of it, do you think the organisation itself has potential for the future?
Not under the British Empire Commonwealth, no. The idea of a British, English-speaking people that you mentioned, across the Federation, I'm not against that. I'm not against that at all. But his idea that the monarchy is at the heart of it is utter nonsense. And I'll tell you something else as well. If that was the case, that this model of British, this monarchist system that you keep sort of like pushing up against, and you're privileged to be there, which is...
Yes, I was very privileged to be there, Mark. I loved it. It was great.
Well, you are an idiot if you feel that way. I'm sorry, but you are.
Well, I tell you what, Mark. There were a lot of idiots there last night.
Wait a minute. Half of the Commonwealth countries, including the largest ones, are either already republics or are going towards being republics, as you know yourself.
Well, she's still the head of state, of course, of 14 of those countries, but most of them have moved on with their independence, and they don't want the British monarch as their head of state anymore. But, Mark, what is remarkable is that, 70 years ago, nearly all these countries were in the British Empire. They're now independent countries, and yet they've still got a great relationship with us.
Another nonsense.
Isn't that wonderful?
The fact that the only other country in the world that had a large empire like us, and has since had broken up into different countries, is France. And they get on far better with their...
Oh, you are having me on, Mark, aren't you? Do you think France and Algeria get on well? They hate each other.
French Guyana and so forth, and half of the South Pacific still want to be part of France. They made a department. There was a football thing a while ago when a team, Nice, had to play a team from French Caledonia, from New Caledonia in the south thing, because they didn't want to be independent. So this idea that...
Well, the one thing, Mark, the French did do, one of the things the French did do well that we didn't do well, is the French actually have representation in their National Assembly for Réunion and places like that. And we didn't do that, and I rather wish we had. You know, Malta, for example, under Dom Mintov, Malta wanted to become part of the United Kingdom with its own representation in Parliament, and we said no. So France, with their smaller former territories, has a good relationship. With Algeria, it has a terrible relationship. But Mark, let me just finish on this point. Whatever you think about the monarchy, I would argue this. Today, I think the monarchy is more popular than it's been at any point in our history. And the younger generation in this country look at the two princes and they think they're really cool.
It's ridiculous that people do not think they're really cool.
Oh, they do.
It's a nonsense.
Oh, they do.
But I have to say this. Why are you so against unelected quangos everywhere else, but you're okay with the monarchy?
Because, Mark, it's our way. It's our way.
See past your own nose.
Well, that's very sweet of you on this Sunday morning, and thank you very much indeed, Mark. Well, Mark, they're no fan of the royal family, but I think he's in a tiny, tiny minority. I think the Queen is the most adored human being in the world. Today, you're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show, exclusive on LBC. It's now 10:15. Is the Commonwealth outdated old hat? Is it the Brits trying to keep on to some last vestige of empire? Or is it the most extraordinary, exciting, diverse group of countries who speak English, have common law, a shared history, and could we really do something very exciting with it for our future? I support the latter idea. I think it's got great potential, and I have no problem with the Queen being at the head of it. I mean, she is actually beloved by a lot of people around the world. And if we didn't have the Queen, we would probably finish up with a political figure. I get on text, the Commonwealth is Britain trying to keep a grip on its colonialist and once powerful past. It is completely pointless. Well, that's a point of view. Andrew says, Nigel, maybe you could twist Trump's arm and get America to join the Commonwealth. Well, this is interesting, Andrew. So, Governor Phil Bryant of Mississippi, friend of mine, he was in here on Thursday. We interviewed him. He was here for the Commonwealth Heads of Government Week, as was the governor of Oklahoma, and quite a big American delegation. There is now a Royal Commonwealth Society office open in America. We've had our first event. I say we because I was there as a guest. And interesting, isn't it? Wilbur Ross turned up, and he's in charge of trade for Trump. Betsy DeVos turned up. She's in charge of education. So two key cabinet ministers turning up for a Royal Commonwealth Society event. I don't see America becoming a member of the Commonwealth, because I think that would start sort of, accusations of returning to the days of George III or whatever it may be. But I can see America in some way being an associate of it. And Trump instinctively, feels a bit like Churchill used to, that there is something rather special between the English-speaking peoples of the world. I honestly believe the Commonwealth has got great potential. What does Emmanuel from Birmingham think? Good morning to you.
Good morning, Nigel. I'm quite glad you're bringing up this at a time when head of states of Commonwealth nations have just visited England and the Queen has been able to speak to them.
I tell you, Emmanuel, we have got a rotten phone line. We're going to get rid of you and bring you back on a line that's a little bit clearer. Loic is calling from Paris. Good morning, Loic.
Good morning, Nigel. How are you?
I'm very well indeed, thank you. So, am I barking mad to think that the Commonwealth has got some real potential for the future?
Absolutely not. And I think the Commonwealth is actually the key to success for Britain post-Brexit.
Explain.
Although Britain's had a regrettable past with it, not supporting the human rights abuses that have gone on in Commonwealth countries, especially in Africa in the past, it is definitely going to be a way for Britain to develop its economy and, in turn, to help develop the economies of these countries, as free trade is the best kind of international aid.
Well, this is interesting, Loic, isn't it? Because, of course, many of these Commonwealth countries, are relatively poor countries, and, of course, for them, selling their products to us is very, very difficult because of something called the Common External Tariff. The European Union makes trade with these countries very difficult, and that is what lots of people last night were talking about, the potential to bring down those trade barriers.
Absolutely. Tariffs are a prevention to development. Tariffs prevent economic development for poorer countries. They favour the European Union. Removing these trade tariffs will be able to help us have free trade with these countries, where they'll be able to sell their products to us, which in turn will help them get money, get economic growth, and potentially have stammer off immigration to our country, because they won't have to leave their country to come to ours.
Well, that's an argument, isn't it? That the more a poor country develops, the fewer people actually want to leave it, and that is absolutely right. Look, Mark, before the break, his biggest criticism was that the unelected monarch was at the head of it. How do you feel about that?
I am a strong fan of the monarchy. I believe the power of the monarchy is not to be underestimated for the power that she removes. I think it would be terrible to have a prime minister be at the head of the Commonwealth, changing every few years or every few months, as it's been in the last few days.
And it would politicise it, wouldn't it?
It would absolutely politicise it. Yeah. Having the Queen, having a stable figurehead, spearhead through the Commonwealth that everyone can recognise, everyone can agree on, is absolutely great and valuable and should not be underestimated.
Terrific. Loic, have a great day in Paris. Thank you. Don from Herne Hill says we're part of the US empire. Well, I don't think we are quite part of the US empire, but they are a very, very important ally who a strong Prime Minister will occasionally say no to if it doesn't actually suit us. The Commonwealth is not a separate layer of government ruling over individual countries. The EU is. I agree with that, Tony, entirely. I'd hate to see the Commonwealth start to turn into the European Union and start to force its member states to start harmonising and homogenising. I would hate that. Let's go back to Emmanuel in Birmingham. Good morning again.
Good morning, Nigel. Sorry about the bad line.
That's better. That's better. Right. What do you think?
Okay. Yeah, I think the Commonwealth at the moment is it's not fit for purpose because of its hypocrisy, Nigel.
Yeah.
Nigel, you're having a Commonwealth known as a gentleman's club where you have heads of states who have taken upon themselves to kill, maim, abduct, and even sacrifice their own country's worth to remain in power, and they parade the corridors of the Commonwealth in the presence of the Queen. I think it is shameful, appalling, and disgraceful. Nigel, let me take the example of Southern Cameroon, the former British Cameroon, which to many people in this country don't even know it used to be part of the British Empire. Since we're talking Commonwealth, which used to be the British Empire, which we're celebrating a common law, a common language. But do you know at this particular moment, the Secretary General of the Commonwealth, Patricia Scotland, visited Cameroon with a crisis that is going on there with over 65,000 Southern Cameroonians reported to be in Nigeria as refugees, and some equally in this country. And the head of and the Secretary General of the Commonwealth is unable to address this. She visited Cameroon. People's houses are being burnt down. People are fleeing into bushes. We have unaccompanied minors in Nigeria at the moment who are running away from the crisis in the former British
Emmanuel, I am aware of real problems there. But isn't the point that, you know, whether it was South Africa during apartheid or Zimbabwe under Mugabe, the Commonwealth does suspend membership of countries that it thinks are behaving very badly?
No, it hasn't. I mean, we've written letters as the Southern Cameroon community in the United Kingdom. We've written letters upon letters to the Commonwealth, asking them to address it. And what they told us, Nigel, I want you to ask this question to Patricia Scotland. She said the root causes of the problem in this Commonwealth country has to be addressed, and she's never been bold enough.
Emmanuel, you're being. I can tell you're very passionate. You're being very specific. I myself have received letters about the South Cameroon situation. I don't know. I just don't know. I can't comment on how bad the situation is. I hear what you have to say, but I would argue that, of course, within the Commonwealth, we're not going to say that every country is perfect, but it is a great, great way of getting people together to discuss these problems. Emmanuel, I thank you for your passion. Natalie is calling from Brighton. Good morning, Natalie.
Good morning. Tony Blair goaded Mugabe in 2003, and that was the end of Zimbabwe in the Commonwealth. And that was 15 years ago. And the Commonwealth, all Commonwealth people, as somebody just said, are have one communal language, which is English.
Yep.
And all the stepchildren are cousins. All the stepchildren of Britain are cousins. These I see as the Commonwealth. And yesterday, Boris Johnson said that Zimbabwe is welcome to rejoin the Commonwealth as long as it has free and fair elections. And yesterday, being the Queen's birthday, I told everybody in Zimbabwe, and they all sent back messages to the Queen. And the one that really got to me was an old man who said, "She is still my girl."
That's very nice, isn't it? Natalie, tell me, as somebody that comes from the Commonwealth, do you feel it is like an extended family?
Yes, I do.
You really do?
We are the stepchildren. We are treated like the stepchildren.
Yep.
Yes, no, we are definitely part of the Commonwealth. And half of Zimbabwe are so happy now that we are welcome to go back in. But the people who don't want Mnangagwa in, they are irate because they have been window dressing with bullet trains and all sorts, while Mnangagwa has been doing the groundwork, digging in the dirt with the British government. And now Boris has said, no, you're very welcome to come back into the Commonwealth, provided you have free and fair elections, which Mnangagwa is determined to have.
Nope.
And he's invited anybody and everybody who wants to go and see the elections to go there.
Natalie, great call. Thank you. Natalie there, feeling actually that those countries are like the stepchildren. Interesting. It won't stay that way forever. It will evolve. Could it be something very exciting? What does Jason in Sutton think? Does the Commonwealth have real potential for the future, Jason?
Not in the near future, or probably the medium-term future. I don't think so, no. I mean, you've been banging on for years about the Commonwealth being the saviour of the British economy post-Brexit.
No, I've never said that, but I do think there's potential there. Now, obviously most of those countries are quite a lot poorer than us, but they do have very high growth rates.
Well, let's put it into perspective. The average price of a car that's exported from the United Kingdom is £20,600.
Yep.
The average GDP per capita within the Commonwealth is $3,500 per year. Now, it's even less than that if you take out Australia and Canada. How many cars at £20,000 a year do you think we're going to be able to export to the Commonwealth? We don't make products in the UK to be able to export to these countries. We make luxury products to sell to people like...
Well, we do sell Jaguars. We do sell Jaguars and Bentleys and cars like that to India in an ever-growing number, don't we?
We do, but when you compare it to the amount of exports that we sell to the European Union, where they've got a GDP per capita in excess of $32,000, that's more than 10 times the amount of the Commonwealth.
Well, Jason, I mean, look, we do 40% of our overseas business is done at the moment with European Union countries. But 60% is done with the rest of the world, despite the fact we've not been able to have especially good trade relations with them. I'm not arguing against doing trade with Europe and saying we have to go for the Commonwealth. All I'm arguing is that in terms of our global influence, in terms of a club that brings people together, I think the Commonwealth's got some value. Jason, I thank you. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show exclusively on OBC. It's now 10:30. And well, our 92-year-old Queen is a very hard-working woman. Not only a late night for her last night, finishing up on the stage at the Royal Albert Hall with this big Commonwealth party to celebrate her birthday, but this morning she pressed the button to start the London Marathon. 41,000 people taking part, and forecast to be the hottest marathon ever. Now, there were, to the relief of runners, some big thunderstorms in London overnight. It has brought the temperatures down, but we're told by the middle of the day it'll be 23 degrees C. That's 73.4 Fahrenheit. So, and that will set the record. The previous hottest was 22.7. So the weather, I'm guessing, is a huge issue. But let's find out what's going on. Let's ask Holly Jones, LBC's reporter down in Greenwich. Good morning, Holly.
Good morning, Nigel. Well, as you say, it is a very hot and sunny day, but the good thing is it means there's lots of spectators out, so the atmosphere is incredible already. Just here at the start of the race, I saw all the runners go off, and you mentioned, that hot weather. People are being told to take it easy, and especially if you're wearing a costume, you are being asked to think twice. I have seen some interesting ones. There's someone dressed as a pint of beer. Scooby-Doo ran past me earlier, and there's one woman doing it on stilts. On stilts, yeah. She set off earlier, so she's going to do the whole 26 miles on stilts. So absolutely incredible. And, just running it itself is, an incredible feat, but actually to do it in some of these outfits that people do on a hot day, people are being told, take it easy, slow down if you need to.
Say, Holly, it sounds bonkers to me, but there we are. And have all the runners started now?
Yeah, everyone's starting. I'm at the start in Greenwich now, and there's still lots of people coming back. I think it takes quite a while for everyone to come through, because, as I say, 41,000 people is a record amount of people this year. And there's huge crowds out, and I'm sure there will be along the way. Everyone says London Marathon is the marathon to do if you want to see those crowds, and it keeps people going.
I'll tell you the odd thing. Normally, with any big sporting event, whether it's the 1,500 metres in the Olympics or whatever it is, all we talk about is who's going to win, who's the favourite. It seems, maybe I've got this wrong, but it seems to me with the London Marathon that no one actually cares who wins.
Well, I think if you're probably into athletics, you might have a bit of a keener eye on who actually wins. But really for me, and I've covered this a few years in a row now, it's really about people coming together and showing what they can do, and really that support and coming together for an amazing day out. And, the sun's shining here, people have come out in their droves to support, and I think that's what it is really about. It's just providing that, for people and running for charities as well.
Well, we are, today we're debating the Commonwealth and the Queen being the head of it. Were there big screens? Could you see the Queen pressing this button when it all started?
I believe it was shown on a screen just sort of further round, and the national anthem played, so it was a sort of very patriotic start to it. And I think people really enjoyed the fact. And as you say, her birthday yesterday. It's been a big weekend of celebrations for Her Majesty.
Absolutely. Holly Jones, thank you very much indeed. Have fun down there in Greenwich. Well, I'm guessing that Mark, our Republican from earlier, he will now be spitting his coffee out, won't he? I'm sorry, there's an awful lot of the Queen around this weekend, and she is enormously popular. I'm going to ask Mayanja in Belfast what the Commonwealth means to him.
All right, thank you very much. Good morning, Nigel.
Good morning.
All right, my name is Afazil, and originally I come from a country called Uganda, and it has been part of the Commonwealth. We are colonized by the British and that kind of stuff. But you talked about Commonwealth countries being poor. I think these countries are not poor. The countries are rich. They are rich in minerals. They are rich in agriculture. The weather is good, a lot of water resources, and most of these resources are actually untapped. So what happens is, the problem with most of these Commonwealth nations is leadership. There is poor leadership, there is poor governance. So as a matter of fact, it has led to the underutilization of such kind of resources, and the people have not been able to benefit. So I think at this point in time, the Commonwealth, Britain leaving the European Union, it is a very good opportunity and a very good chance for Britain to benefit in these untapped resources, as well as for African nations to also align more with Britain and leave countries like China, because China is coming into these Commonwealth countries because Britain had underrated these countries. Britain had underrated...
Oh, well, listen, we did more than underrate them. We actually willfully turned our backs on them back in 1973. The very countries who in 2 world wars had sent their people, stood by us, helped us. It was a terrible betrayal in many ways.
Exactly, because we were left with no option. Because, I, for one, I would rather align with Britain than align with China, because you don't know, the Chinese policies and, what they are coming with in Africa. And you're seeing a lot of Chinese actually coming up in Africa, creating a lot of, bringing a lot of trucks and bringing a lot of machinery, drilling oil and doing all that kind of stuff. Because it is our leadership, Britain turns the back on these countries, and as a matter of fact, these countries were left with no option.
And tell me finally, what do you think about the Queen being the head of the Commonwealth?
I think the Queen is, she's an inspirational figure for the Commonwealth, and people in where I come from, especially in Uganda, they think highly about the Queen, and because these Commonwealth countries also have monarchies, or they have kingdoms, and they have kings and queens and stuff like that. So we highly respect the Queen, and we would like her to. Because recently, whenever Chogam was held in Uganda in 2007, when she visited our country, Uganda, people were happy to see the Queen, and everyone was excited.
No, I mean the way she's travelled around these Commonwealth countries, she loves it. And of course, Prince Charles, actually, he has put a huge amount in. It's going to be very tough for him though when his turn comes to take over, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, it's going to be very tough, but I think he has been well introduced into... He's been moving places, and I think he's also well versed with the Commonwealth. He has been meeting these leaders. He hasn't been at the back of the thing. So I think he also understands, how...
Good. Well, a very positive assessment there. Thank you very much indeed. I must admit, it was a week after the referendum. I was in the car just outside Croydon. We stopped. I got out. I went into the shop to buy something. I came out and there was a car there. Bloke was filling up, and sitting in the front seat was a woman. There were 3 kids in the back between about sort of 8 and 15. And they saw me, and she sort of leaned out the window and started screaming, and she got out the window, and the kids all got out, and we all had to have photographs, you see. And they were, Mum and Dad had come to this country from Jamaica, and the kids had been born in this country. And she was a larger-than-life figure, big personality. And she said to me, now we've got Brexit, do you think our countries could become friends again? And that was volunteered to me by a Jamaican-born woman on the forecourt of a petrol station in Croydon. And it's interesting. There is actually, amongst people middle-aged and older from Commonwealth countries, there is a great sense of resentment that we chose the European project over them. And despite that, we're still together in the Commonwealth. So if we've got through a very difficult period like this, hey, we could be headed for some very exciting times. James on Facebook says, trade with the Commonwealth countries is great. Frank says, the countries in the Commonwealth actually want to be a part of it. It's not colonialism, as they have the freedom to leave if they want to. Frank, you're absolutely right. They're all there as independent sovereign countries. And interestingly, they all have equal say. Regardless whether they represent 20,000 people or 1 billion people, they all have an even say at these Commonwealth conferences. I've got a phone call from the Commonwealth. Peter is calling from St Kitts in the Caribbean. I can't believe it. Hello, Peter.
And good day to you, sir.
Hi. What time of the day is it there?
It's, we're 5 hours different to you, aren't we, or something like that?
Yeah.
It's quarter to 6 here in the Caribbean.
Yeah, so is this after a late night out, Peter, or are you just up early?
Well, you know how, I'd rather not go into that, to tell you the truth.
Now tell me, what does the Commonwealth, what does the Queen mean in St Kitts?
Well, listen, let me tell you everything. I can assure you of that. Everybody loves it, and they've got the Queen's birthday coming up and that sort of thing. I mean, we have all the time, we have things with regards to it. I've lived all over the Commonwealth, from Hong Kong, Singapore, Seychelles, across Africa, into the Caribbean and all that sort of thing. And everywhere you go in the Commonwealth, they love the Queen.
They do.
I mean, these people that talk also, I heard somebody just say, so many people saying so many ridiculous things, like, for instance, about cars, selling cars. Everybody in these places owns a car. They're desperate to have a car.
Yeah.
Honestly, okay, so we've got old things like Morris Minors and Mini Mokes and things like that. But, at the same token, they love to have a car. And they love minis, honestly.
That's interesting. Interesting. Why? Is it? They're former colonies. They're now in the Commonwealth. But what you're saying, they still like some of the British symbolism.
Yeah, absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt. Here in the Caribbean, there's pictures of the royal family all over the place. Honestly, in people's private houses. And I wrote to Ted Heath, that complete dingbat, when I was in Seychelles at the time.
Yep.
I outlined every single Commonwealth country, what they had got and what they could do, by us staying with them rather going into Europe with the people that don't like us anyway.
Some people would say that, Peter.
So anyway, I got a reply back from him. I went through, told them everything that every Commonwealth country has got. And, the Commonwealth has got everything.
So, Peter, great future for the Commonwealth, in your opinion?
Absolutely. We need to go with them. Let me tell you, the vast majority of them are really pleased that Brexit is happening.
I know they are. I know they are. Peter, great call. Have Have a fabulous day on St Kitts. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC, and it's now 10:46. 53 countries were represented last night in the Royal Albert Hall to celebrate the Queen's 92nd birthday. She is the head of the Commonwealth. It is a remarkable organisation. It has its problems. This week there's been quite a discussion about the fact that 37 of the Commonwealth countries still have laws on gays that some would think are out-fashioned and old-dated. So these countries aren't all equivalent. Some are relatively rich, some are relatively poor. But the commonality is the use of English, common law in nearly every case, and a shared history together. I think we can make an awful lot of it, and interestingly, the Americans now showing interest in the Commonwealth. On Twitter, Justin says, even us Americans revere the Queen. There is a bit of envy for the institution Her Majesty represents. Well, I tell you who is a huge fan of the Queen. I know, because I've sat and talked to him about it, and that's Donald J. Trump. He thinks the Queen is absolutely amazing. And you know what? Most of us do. And at some point in the future, and don't forget, her mother lived to 101, who knows, the Queen could live a very long time still. But at some point in time, when Charles becomes the head of the Commonwealth, boy, that is going to be a very difficult act to follow. And lots of you texting and tweeting about the differences between the Commonwealth and the European Union. If the elites had any brains, they would have developed the Commonwealth, not gone with the EU. We love each other as neighbours, but we are not the same country, which is their ultimate goal. Commonwealth, not EU, says Tony. With the erosion of our freedoms and the demonisation of anyone who expresses pride in their nationhood, HM the Queen and the monarchy represent something for us to believe in as British people. Do you know, Dirk, and thanks for that, actually the Queen, why is she so popular? Well, I think it's because she's been so honest, she's been so faithful, she's worked as the most incredible servant for 70 years and frankly never put a foot wrong. And in a world of a lot of problems, she represents, I think, something actually rather wholesome. People like that and they want that. But the amazing thing is to see the popularity of William and Harry. It is just extraordinary. You know, I went to the Westminster Abbey Field of Remembrance just ahead of Remembrance Sunday last year, and to all the old soldiers, you know, Harry is a bit of a hero. They all want to see him. They all want to be photographed with him. And when he came on the stage last night at the Royal Albert Hall, all the teenagers started screaming. So we've got these two celebrity princes. I mean, I can't think there's been any moment in our history when the monarchy has been more popular than it is right at this moment in time. Adam is calling from Madrid in Spain. Good morning, Adam.
Good morning, Nigel. How are you?
I'm well. Do you know what? I really, really enjoyed myself last night, Adam. And as I say, I thought the Queen had gone, but then suddenly when she appeared on the stage, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. I loved it.
Yeah, she's marvellous, isn't she?
I really genuinely think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I wanted to say, I've heard a few of your listeners calling in and saying that the Commonwealth is an outdated vestige of empire.
Yep.
And, you know, we should feel guilty for having gone there, having colonised these countries in the first place. I lived in Dubai for 10 years, and in Dubai, a significant part of the workforce are Indians.
Yep.
From all over India, and they don't have this feeling because they don't have a chip on the shoulder about us anymore. They've moved on. They're a huge, independent, proud nation, and they're quite happy to be in an organisation with us as equals. You know, they don't have this idea that, you know, the British came and a lot of them are quite happy we were there, happier that we left. But, you know, they feel genuine affection, perhaps not for the UK as an ex-colonial power, but British culture, the language. They're delighted to be English speakers. Helps them speak to each other.
It is remarkable, Adam, isn't it? That, you know, we were their colonial masters, and I look at the other European countries, and a lot of them have got, I mean, Belgium and the Congo, for example, some pretty bad relationships between those countries, and it is remarkable, this kind of friendship in this club, isn't it?
Well, Belgium is an interesting example because they had Rwanda, and Rwanda has now joined the Commonwealth. You know,
this is a point, Adam.
Left them with a system that encouraged
this is a point
to kill each other. they now seem to think that in the Commonwealth there might be some sort of...
I understand, Adam, there are 6 countries queuing up to join the Commonwealth, none of whom were ever part of the British Empire. So it is being seen now around the world as being an organisation with real potential.
That's right. The fact that it grew out of the British Empire is now irrelevant.
Yeah, we've moved on.
It seems to me that it's only people in Britain who seem to...
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Adam, I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Have a great day in Madrid. I asked the question earlier for young people, what have you been taught about this? Nothing at all. When I was in school, I can't remember any teacher talking about it. Maybe it was talked about more 50 or 100 years ago. Well, I think 100 years ago, weren't kids painting in bits of the map pink and things like that? I do think the Commonwealth is something that has simply not been discussed very much, and I think now that is going to change. David on Facebook says, I've travelled to 200 countries around the world. Wow. Britain is the best and the Commonwealth is wonderful. Right, well, there you go. Jason is calling from Acton. Good morning, Jason.
Good morning, Nigel. How are you?
I am good. So, what do you think of that?
Great.
It does. Is this a colonial sort of throwback, or does it have potential, Jason?
I think there's as a British born, I'm British born. My family's from Nigeria. I've got a dual passport, and as a British person, I don't feel comfortable us leaving the European Union. However, as also going back home and going to Nigeria, I see that a lot of people that are Nigerian can call you and maybe argue this point, but I feel that investment in agriculture and pushing forward vocational skills and if we were to go into the Commonwealth and then there's prospects for us to grow agriculture in Nigeria, for us to do business with England, I think there's huge potential there. I feel that in Nigerian culture, we focus too much on a lot. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but a lot on very high academical, what would I call it, like doctors, lawyers, but there's no one really doing agriculture. There's no one really doing carpentry, plumbing, electricity. And I think if we
sort of untapped human resources, then, Jason.
Yeah. I mean, what I do as well, I've bought a few lands in Nigeria to look into business towards agriculture, as well as me working in UK. But again, like I said, Nigel, the reason why I feel a certain way about Brexit is because I want to have freedom to go from from England to Spain to France. Have freedom of movement.
Jason, if you're a law-abiding citizen carrying a legitimate passport, it will still be very, very easy to go to Spain for the weekend or whatever else. I promise you, that is not under threat. Jason, I thank you. Time for one last call on this. Joe is calling from Nantwich. Good morning, Joe.
Nigel, lovely to speak to you again. Nigel, I was born in Trinidad.
Yep.
And I know the potential of the Commonwealth. When you look at the Commonwealth and all the countries in it, you look at Africa, Nigeria, oil. You look at, you've got India and Pakistan out of Asia. In the Caribbean, you've got Brunei as well. In the Caribbean, you've got fruit and abundance and everything. And when you look at Europe, there's 2 countries in the Commonwealth. Now, you've got Cyprus and you've got Malta.
Yep.
Now, it seems to me we've been going to the wrong club. We've been using our pass to go to the wrong club. But we've still got our pass. Let's go to the right club. And the right club is 2.5 billion people with the resources. You take Trinidad, for instance. Last year, they found an enormous amount of oil and gas. Run our pipeline to there, if you like, but the potential there is fantastic.
The untapped potential of many of these Commonwealth countries. But, Joe, let me just put this to you. Peter in Lancashire has texted me, and he says, the Queen is loved and respected. The Queen is the Commonwealth. To what extent is that true, do you think?
No, everything passes down. Everything passes down the line. I'm proud that Prince Charles, that's part of the royal family, they revere the royal family. But not only that, Nigel, I look upon the world like this. I look upon England as the mother, and even America might be the eldest son. But all the other Commonwealth countries are the jewels in our crown, and we've not polished these
It's
jewels.
Untapped, isn't it? No, it is. So, Joe, are you with Brexit coming, with this amazing success of this conference this week, and 1 or 2 arguments, but great success, are you bullish about the future of the Commonwealth?
I've never been more bullish. It's an amazing club. What, you've got 500 people in Europe, and you've got 2.5 billion plus America to go at. We don't need anybody else. Yes, we'll talk to the Chinese as well.
Yeah,
but they're a great country.
But we've got a head start here, haven't we? We've got a head start.
And not only that, Nigel, not only that, can you imagine how frightened our friends in Europe will be if we're going to switch on to the
well, yes, a lot of them. Yeah, I don't think Monsieur Barnier wishes to see us succeed in terms of global trade. Joe, I thank you. Well, Commonwealth immigration was a big issue on the 20th of April 1968 when the Shadow Defence Secretary Enoch Powell made a speech in Birmingham. He told his friend before it would go up like a rocket. It was the first time a major politician had spoken out against the establishment consensus on immigration that had been there from both parties since basically the end of World War II. I want to know, what did you take from Powell's speech of 50 years ago? If you think the speech was totally wrong in every way, call me on 0345 6060 973. If you think, well, the language wasn't very nice, but the things in that speech that matter, text to 84850. And if you're younger, tell us, what does Enoch Powell mean to you? Had you ever heard of him before this week? Please tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC. And you can watch us on Facebook. You can comment there too. We're live from London next.